All right, welcome everybody to the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. I am Chase, obviously the co-host. Next to me is Derek Larger, and today we've got a relatively short but good show for you today. We will start off with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, he now has a bunch of rookies that he's throwing to, plus Alan Lazard, and his rookie Romeo Dobbs actually caught his 500th touchdown pass yesterday. Derek, what are your thoughts on achieving this milestone with a bunch of rookies and upcoming guys in this league?
Well, I mean, talk about all the past history to get to that, right? I mean, 500 touchdowns is something that only four other quarterbacks in this league have ever done. I mean, what Aaron Rodgers has been, regardless of how much Super Bowls he's won, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has implemented himself as one of the most creative and fun quarterbacks to ever watch, right? I mean, this guy has been tearing up the league for 10 years now and has just been absolutely destroying people. And this milestone does not surprise me. Aaron Rodgers, we've known for a long time now, had a gift, and it's truly awesome to see Aaron Rodgers hit this milestone along with a lot of the other milestones that he's reached over these last 10 years, specifically, winning a Super Bowl, a lot of memories like, the run the table thing from many years ago where he told Packers fans, don't worry, we're going to run the table. And sure enough, they won like 8 straight games in a row to make the playoffs. You talk about some of the fantastic highlights that he has. And I mean, it's not surprising. He's top 10 in career passing yards, career completion percentage, and a lot of other things. I mean, this guy is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback at one point when it's all said and done. Not surprising, but truly awesome that, we get to recognize the greatness of Aaron Rodgers and what he continues to do even at his age.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing considering the fact that the guys that have come before him that have been able to do this. Two of them are retired. One of them is still playing, and the fact that they are all Hall of Famers and leading that charge to where Aaron's gonna be is just simply amazing. Davante Adams was able to catch his 400th touchdown pass, and now Romeo Dobbs is able to catch his 500th touchdown pass. So that is absolutely insane. I'm predicting within the next couple years he's going to develop the chemistry with Romeo Dobbs like he did with Davante Adams. But we'll have to wait and see how that happens. But yeah, truly a great milestone for Aaron Rodgers. On a side note, I do want to say this since we haven't been able to get on and say it in a while. Congratulations to Albert Pujols for achieving the 700th home run club. A guy like that who has been in baseball for so long now and making this his final year and achieving that feat in his final year is absolutely amazing. There has only been 4 other players in MLB history before him that have been able to achieve 700 home runs. And for a guy like that to do it as long as he's done, to be able to do it now is simply amazing.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal. It almost makes me wish he would play a little longer, because he's clearly still got it. He still has that power. I mean, it's not like he's not hitting homers this year. I mean, the man has hit 30 homers this year. You could imagine he probably could still do it if he decided to come back. But yeah, I mean, Pujols, a guy that was, brought in the early 2000s, to turn around that Cardinals team. And, growing up, absolutely hated Albert Pujols because as a Reds fan, like you hated Albert Pujols because anytime you went and saw Albert Pujols, what was coming. And Albert Pujols instilled fear in everyone that he played because obviously that power that he has was second to none. I mean, one of the greatest sluggers that this game has ever seen. And just to be around for the amount of years that he has and still play at the level that he is. I mean, playing 20 years in baseball, I mean, it's not an easy feat. Only a few guys in MLB history have ever been able to do that. I mean, 20 years for any kind of sport, professional sport. I mean, it takes a lot on you to be able to do that for that many years, and to see him and see what he's done. And especially for him to come back as a Cardinal and do that, I felt made that so much better as a milestone. As yes, he played for the Angels for a few years, but for him to come back to the organization that drafted him, brought him in, he made a household name for himself in that organization. To be able to do that in that ballpark and be able, and it's ironic enough to be able to do it in LA as well, and in the Dodgers stadium too alone makes it pretty freaking awesome. And then hit 701 just the other night.
He's at 702 now.
Yeah, he hit 702 as well. Great. Yeah, I mean, truly remarkable. And it's incredible too, because I feel like he could still play. But yeah, Albert Pujols, his name will be remembered forever. I mean, he's amongst the elite of the elite now.
He's going to Cooperstown.
Yep, he is one of the greatest hitters that we've ever seen in MLB history, and I'm very happy for him. Couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that he was able to achieve this milestone without taking any PEDs or performance like steroids or anything to help, you know, a cork bat, anything that would help his swing, help his power. He did this all naturally, and that is very few things that you could say from any of the true hitters that have come before him. You got guys like Jim Thome, one of the natural, most pure hitters of, you know, our generation and earlier, a guy like that never even achieved 700 home runs. So the fact that a guy like Albert Pujols, a modern day Babe Ruth is what people are calling him. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's been able to do this has been so sweet. And the fact that he did it with the the St. Louis Cardinals have just been so much sweeter, like you said. And, you know, when he hit that 700th home run, he came out and said that he doesn't want that ball back. He said, baseballs are for souvenirs for fans. He's just like, they can keep that ball. I don't need it. But
yeah, I think the MLB tried to offer the guy that caught it like 10 grand just to get the ball to give it to Pujols. But yeah, you keep a hold of that thing, dude. That ball will be worth a couple $100,000
maybe $1 million.
Point. Maybe even $1 million at one point, because that is a huge piece of memorabilia. So
the fact that he's the fourth player in MLB history to ever do it, the fourth player. You know, you got Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, and A-Rod. So he's the fifth to ever do it in MLB history. And that's a feat that not very many people can say. So, you know, for him, that is absolutely fantastic. I just had to bring that up because you don't see that very often. And
I'm glad you did bring that up, because that makes me happy that you remember that. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, no, baseball's always been my first love, but, you know, I had to bring that up because a lot of people don't realize how significant of a feat that is for any baseball player, let alone Albert Pujols.
Yep, absolutely.
So, bringing it back to football, we'll go back into it. We got the game that was on Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs and Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have had struggles to start the season with. Obviously, they've been missing a lot of offensive key pieces. They've been, their defense has been holding them in games. They do have the number one ranked defense as of now. I don't know as of yesterday, but, you know, going into yesterday, they had the best. But they've been able to hold their own and win by a few points. Can the Buccaneers turn it around and be that dominant, explosive team, blowing teams out, you know, Tom Brady playing at an MVP type level? Can they turn it around after a slow start? Or do you think that, you know, we have seen Tom Brady in his final year this year and the Buccaneers struggling more than they ever have?
I'd like to say that they can turn this around, because, you know, you never underestimate the power of Tom Brady, right? Like, that's always been something that we have always, throughout his entire playing career, that you just don't bet against Tom Brady because he always is kept in control. And most of the time, his teams are kept in control. I will say this, it's starting to feel like this isn't like every other Tom Brady led team right now. The Buccaneers are struggling offensively, even though yesterday they scored 30 points. I mean, that's the highest point total I think they've had all season. And just right now, they're just having difficulty with putting games together right now. And you said it, they've had a lot of injuries, to their receivers, to their offensive line. And now you have Tom Brady, who is now injured, who looks to appear to have hurt his throwing shoulder in the middle of that Kansas City game. He said it's nothing, but then again, like, we've not seen that much. And then, of course, like you said, just the lack of consistency offensively. And with the fact that, you got rid of Bruce Arians, who, could have been probably one of the only few guys in the league.
He retired. They didn't get rid of him.
Yeah, right. Retired. Yeah. So, he might have been one of the few guys that could have ever, kept all of these personalities and this group together as one cohesive unit. I wonder how much losing him is responsible for how this team is looking to start the year, just looking kind of out of place. Now, I do believe they do have a chance because, like you said, that defense that they have is still really good. They can stop the run. They can get pressure on the quarterback. They have that ability still. And if the offense finds its rhythm again with Tom Brady being more consistent and with their receivers when they come back, this team, I do believe, does have a good chance of coming back and being kind of like the Tampa Bay team that we remember over the last few years. But it definitely feels a lot different than what we're used to seeing from a Brady-led team right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, from the first play of the game when they muffed that punt and the Chiefs got it back, and, from that point on, I think it was Chiefs were in control the entire game.
Yeah.
They come out firing on all cylinders. They were, mad that they had gotten beat in the Super Bowl, and they wanted to come out and make a stand against the Bucs, saying that they were as good as the team as what they expected. And, the Chiefs just gave it to them the entire game. Like, that Bucs defense kept them in that game the entire game. But it's not like Tom Brady didn't have weapons. He did have Cole Beasley, who just got there, I understand, but he had Chris Godwin, he had Julio Jones, he had a couple weapons on there, not to mention Lenny, he had Leonard Fournette. But, the Tom Brady that we saw in the past that was able to do such great things with not very many weapons, you didn't see that. I think the old age is starting to catch up to him, and, his shoulder injury that he has may take a little longer to heal because he's a little older now. But it really just depends on how Todd Bowles can get this team going. I really think that Byron Leftwich should have taken over and being the head coach, but, that's neither here nor there at the time. But regardless, I think that the Bucs have to turn it around quickly, and if they don't, then we will see them as a first-round exit in the playoffs.
I agree.
That's just how it is. Moving on to some injury concerns, Brian Robinson, the Washington Commanders running back at the start of the season, was named the starting running back before the regular season had began, and then had sustained a injury after being shot. He is now medically cleared to play. Derek, do you see him coming in right away, taking a major role, getting the bulk of the carries, if not all of them, and, helping this Commanders team to more victories? Or do you think that it's still going to be split between him and Antonio Gibson?
Well, I mean, first off, it's amazing that he's medically cleared already. I mean, basically just a little over a month before he got shot, and ended up now he's going to be potentially cleared. It's great that he's medically cleared. The Commanders have 21 days to put him on the active roster, which I assume at some point here in the next week or so, they're probably going to do that. I do not believe that Robinson's going to come in and just be the bona fide number one starter right away, even if he's medically cleared and that he's perfectly fine to resume all activities. You know, it is one of those situations you want to get him tested with that leg. So I do expect a situation where you see a Gibson and Robinson splitting some carries. You know, it's good to get him back out there, but you don't want to just give this guy the full workload after he was just shot, right? You want to make sure that all things are considered good. And then if he responds to the game action that he's getting well, then yes, at some point I expect Brian Robinson to take that starting role again. But yeah, I do expect them to kind of take it a little slow for Brian Robinson to start off. But it is great to hear that he is medically cleared and ready to resume NFL activities.
Yeah, no, a guy that has been shot and, you know, now coming back off that injury and saying that he's fully healthy and ready to go. It's incredible that you can be back that quickly after, you know, sustaining an injury like that. But I do believe that we're going to see split carries between him and Antonio Gibson. And my question is, you know, the last Commanders running back that they had that was good or decent was Darius Geis. And I'm like, nah, not really. You didn't really see a whole lot out of him, but like, I'm just surprised that nobody's picked him up and we haven't seen him on an active roster over the past couple of years, because the last time we saw in-game action with him was with the Commanders.
Well, I know he got into some legal trouble. He had a lot of legal trouble. It wasn't just a few small things. I mean, there was allegations of sexual assault and rape that he was dealing with. There was hazing. There was money fraud. You know, there was a lot of things that were being attached to his name from all the way back at his LSU days. So, you know, when he got injured and then all of this stuff kept coming out about him, I mean, I think the Commanders just paid him off and just released him, and then just I just don't think anyone's taking a chance on him at that point.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those situations when it starts raining, it pours, and it was that situation when it came to Darius Geis.
Yeah, and like, honestly, it's not like he's a quarterback. Like, I feel like there's some team out there that if he was a quarterback and he was good, they would overlook some of those issues. But like, running backs are a dime a dozen nowadays, and it seems like colleges are producing more and more running backs and better running backs each year, that you could get them anywhere and they could fit your scheme, your system at any point in time. So I think that the reason why he hasn't been signed or picked up anywhere is because of the issues, but not only that, because he's a running back and it's very easy to find those nowadays. Moving on to the next thing. So anybody that had watched the Pittsburgh Steelers had saw that, you know, they have been playing atrociously. You know, I don't know if the Colts have been better or if the Steelers have been better, but, you know, regardless, the Steelers needed a spark on offense yesterday, and we saw the first game action of Kenny Pickett. The first round, the only quarterback selected in the first round of this past draft, and we saw how he played yesterday. His first throw, even though it was a very catchable ball, it should have been caught by the tight end Pat Freiermuth. It went over his hands or through his hands into the defender, and it was a pick for his first NFL pass. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that, you know, with the way that people are giving Trubisky so much flack because he threw like 2 interceptions and then Pickett comes in and throws 2, do you think that it's right to say it's okay that Pickett threw them, but it's not okay that Mitch threw them?
Well, I mean, when you're looking at it from this perspective, I mean, we've seen Mitch Trubisky play through the first couple weeks of the season, and it's clear that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is not moving well with Mitch Trubisky at the helm. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different situation than Mitch Trubisky, who's been in the league now for 4 years, and versus a guy who is seeing his first real NFL action having the same result. I think it is a completely different observation. Mitch Trubisky, He was in this offense. He was named the starter. This team was his to lead, and he wasn't doing his job well enough to sustain that job. And that's why you brought in Kenny Pickett to see if something would change. Obviously, it didn't change, really. And then you had Minkah Fitzpatrick, coming out after the game saying it's frustrating losing to people that you're better than. And, I mean, I feel bad for the Steelers defense, because the Steelers defense with Devin Bush and with Albert Heinsworth, and you're talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt when he comes back. Like, that defense has at least 2 or 3 all-pro players on that defense. Mm-hmm. And this is a defense that can, if given a competent offense, can do a lot of damage to a lot of teams. And right now, I mean, I feel bad for guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, who they know that this team can be better if they had a competent quarterback right now. And it's one of those situations where the Steelers just don't have it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a learning lesson for Kenny Pickett. You get your first NFL action. You didn't do well. We're going to look at the tape. We're going to try to correct it, and we're trying to move on. But, I mean, in question of, do I think Kenny Pickett should be the starter going forward? I think you've made that decision very apparent. You gave up on Mitch Trubisky. You brought in Kenny Pickett for a reason. It's time to stick to that. It's time to stick to that and see who, if he does have it or he doesn't. Because then you can make a decision at the end of the year to figure out what you want to do next. But you've already said to the locker room, we need to make a change at the quarterback. Bad or good for Kenny Pickett, that's the direction we need to go with going forward.
Yeah. And with all these Steelers fans that are sitting there saying, like, trust in the process, trust in Mike Tomlin, he's never had a losing season. He'll get this team switched around, et cetera, et cetera. The fact that a guy like that you call your leader in the clubhouse, and you want him at the helm leading this team, then the decision that he made to bring Kenny Pickett in was, he said that he wanted to create a spark on offense, and it absolutely did. Because, Derek, I don't know if you watch any of the Pittsburgh Steelers game at all, but guys like George Pickens, their receiver that they picked up in the second round, he had the best game that he's ever had this year with Kenny Pickett being in there. Not to mention, Kenny came in, they scored 2 other touchdowns. 2 of them were rushing touchdowns led by Kenny himself. And the fact that this offense just looked a lot better. Now it's apparent and amazing how different this team is without TJ Watt on that defensive side of the ball and everything like that. But, like, you got guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, like you said, Deontay Johnson, who's been known as a good wide receiver. Cam Hayward, an all-pro defensive tackle. Guys like that leading this team, and they're still not beating opponents that they should beat, is absolutely insane. And I think it all starts because of Mitch Trubisky. This is a guy who's been around the league for so long now. And I think that a lot of Steelers fans and a lot of people around the NFL are too quick to criticize that Pickett threw 2 picks and Trubisky threw 2 picks. Why are we more hard on Mitch than we are on Kenny? It's because it's Kenny's first NFL game that he's ever been in. Like, Mitch has been around the NFL now for 4 to 5 years and has seen so many games, so much game action, that you cannot make that excuse for him. You can't give him some slack. You can't, sit here and say, oh, it's okay. He's learning. He'll come back and do it. No, he's had 5 years in the NFL. And the fact that you're still throwing picks and still making the mistakes that you're doing after even being a starter for 3 years is absolutely insane. So,
yep.
That's just my opinion. Moving on to another topic that we've got, the Jags struggled with ball control against the Eagles. They had 4 fumbles, and I think all of them, if not most of them, were led by Trevor Lawrence himself. And I don't know if you watched that game or anything, Derek, but, like, when I saw that game, I even saw the highlights, but, like, I was watching a majority of that game. And honestly, if Trevor Lawrence covers up that ball and has more ball security, they come out with the win, probably by a touchdown over the Eagles, because 2 of those fumbles were Lawrence's fault on a 4th and 1 play in the on the Eagles red zone, and I think it was like on the Eagles 20-yard line, and it was a disaster in of itself. But like I'll tell you what, Doug Peterson has this team changed around to where they are now going to be a force in the AFC South and going to be a good team moving forward if they can get a couple more pieces here. But are the Jags the best team in the AFC South at the moment?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's no question. I mean, every single game that they have played, they have been competitive. And I can't say that for all the other three teams in the AFC South. So it's very clear that the Jaguars are the best team in the AFC South at this moment. I mean, when they lost to the Commanders, they had a chance to win that game. They just lost it late. And obviously blew out the Indianapolis Colts, blew out the LA Chargers, albeit they were hurt a lot, but they
were still a good team.
They still beat them out. And then, they had a chance to beat the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are the only unbeaten team at this point. So, but I mean, they had a chance to win that game and they took that lead early on them. Again, just couldn't figure it out down the stretch. But what you have to be happy with if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and believe me, I know a lot of them. I've worked with a lot of them through this industry. And
they exist?
What's up?
They exist?
Yeah, they exist. Believe me. There's a lot of them that wait in hiding. But I've talked with a lot of Jags content creators and fans. And like, if you're in their situation, you do feel good about yourself. Because you're right. You feel like you're competitive now. Like, when's the last time, probably since like 2017, since the Jaguars fans felt like they were actually competitive, like as if they actually belonged in football games, right? Like that's where they're at now. They're not winning every game, but you feel confident that your team has a chance to win it all. And that's good. That's what you want from a Jaguars team that hasn't had sustained success, but you feel like even if this year you don't finish the season the way that you wanted, if you can remain competitive in all of these games, you feel great because then you're like, okay, so we're being coached properly. We have certain things that are set in the right way. Now, what can we do to add to that success? Is it getting a few better position coaches? Is it bringing in a few different players at a few different positions that we're struggling in? Is it about, getting Trevor Lawrence more help? Like what needs to be done? But right now, I mean, that's the amazing thing, is to think that the Jaguars are the most complete team in the AFC South right now. And that's important. And they feel very confident. This team can win 6-7 games if they keep playing at the level that they're at right now. If they keep playing at the level they're at right now, they may mess around and win 8 games. They may win 9 games, like that sort of thing. And that is very big for them because they haven't felt like that in over 5 years. And it's good that they finally have started to show resemblance of a decent football team.
Yeah, and just looking at how this team has, played over the past few weeks has been nothing short of spectacular. I mean, we were all hard, like me, you, Josh, I talked to a few people on TikTok who are Jags fans. They were all very hard on Doug Peterson coming in, being the head coach, because a lot of them wanted Byron Leftwich. A lot of them wanted, a guy that has been with the system before, a guy that has played for them, a guy that, has led the Buccaneers offense to the way it is. They wanted a guy like that to come in and lead Trevor Lawrence and be that, saving grace for them. And I was actually kind of like mixed with this. I think that maybe they should have went a younger route. Maybe they should have went with a different coach. But looking at it, Doug Peterson was probably the best coach that you could get for that situation, because this team is nothing but young guys. They've got a young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence that is willing to learn and develop to be a great star in this league. And the fact that when he came in, he had a purpose set. Like, this is a Super Bowl winning head coach and a guy who's led the Eagles from the basement of the NFC East, now going to the basement of the AFC South in the Jaguars and trying to lead them to relevancy. this is a guy that after watching him play or watching his team play for the first 4 weeks of the season, I do believe that they are 1 to 2 pieces away from being absolutely spectacular. And like you said, Jags fans haven't felt this way since 2017. If Trevor Lawrence would have been able to be around for that 2017 team, they win that Super Bowl that year. And I can almost say that definitively because Blake Bortles was not going to lead that team to success. There's no way about it. But looking at the Jacksonville schedule on everybody that they've got coming up, they've got the Texans next week. That's a win for the Jags, at least in my book. Then they got the Colts. That's a win for the Colts, maybe. They got the Giants. They could easily win that one. Broncos, they could win. The Raiders, they could win that one because of the way that they've been playing. Look, Derek, I'm looking at their schedule right now, and there is probably 7 or 8 winnable games on there that they could easily beat. I'd say the only tough opponents that they really got that are coming up is the Ravens, the Chiefs, and maybe the Colts if they could put up a fight this time, and the Cowboys. Those are the only 4 opponents that I really see them, struggling against. Everybody else, I think that they could beat, especially since they came out and blew out the Chargers and whatnot. So it'll be very interesting to see what they can do.
Yep, it'll be very interesting. I'm very shocked at just how well they have played. If they just didn't beat themselves in weeks 1 and 2 or weeks 1 and 4, I mean, this team would be almost would be undefeated right now, and it's insane to think about.
No, like 100%. If they do not fumble the ball 4 times in yesterday's loss, they win against the Eagles and beat one of the only undefeated teams, or beat the only undefeated team left in the NFL. So it is absolutely insane. I think that if they could go toe to toe with the Eagles, they could go toe to toe with the Chargers, and put up as many points as they have. I think that they have a chance against the Chiefs. I think that they have a chance against the Ravens, especially with the way that the Ravens have been playing lately. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Doug Peterson can lead this team. But if the Jags can keep this up and they can actually win games, and the Colts keep falling like they are, I think the Jags might come out on top of the division this year.
They could. At this rate, I mean, the other 3 AFC South teams are not very good right now, so the Jags definitely have that opportunity.
Yeah, I picked it screwed up my picks because I picked the Jags to finish 3rd in the division this year. I picked the Colts to be in 1st, and I picked the Titans to be in 2nd. Because I thought that maybe with the loss of AJ Brown, having Derrick Henry back fully would still keep the Titans in relevancy, but not make them that number 1 team. And I thought that, with the addition of Matt Ryan, pairing him up with Frank Reich and this offense and everything, also with how good the Colts defense was last year, I kind of expected the Colts to take that next leap and be the team to beat in the AFC South, but they have yet to show me that this year.
Yep, same here.
But I don't know. And another injury concern that we had from yesterday was Javonte Williams, the Broncos star running back, has torn his ACL and he is out for the season. Derek, it is insane how many ACL and Achilles tears that we have seen over the past couple years in the NFL. Like, it's beginning to wonder, are the team doctors and or team physical therapists really doing anything to help prevent this kind of stuff? Or is it the NFL and their turf fields that they have that is causing these injuries?
Well, I definitely know that the turf has definitely become a severe issue. I know that's something that a lot of people don't talk about is, when it comes to, there's a good and a bad when it comes to turf. The good aspect of the turf thing is it saves a lot of money for people who own these places, right? You can move the turf, you can reapply it, reattach it, take it off. It's easier to maintain. So obviously from a year-to-year basis, you're saving a lot more money by having turf, spending a lot of money up front on turf, but having it last for 10 to 15 years and not having to do any big maintenance to it throughout the year. So it kind of helps. But what people won't tell you is the fact that what that turf is actually doing to these players is it's causing a lot more of these injuries in the lower body. And I'll give a perfect example of this. So Paris Campbell in 2020 tore his PCL and MCL in the same play when he was tackled by Harrison Smith of the Vikings, where Paris had planted his left foot to try to avoid him. And Harrison came into his knee, and because it was turf where his foot could not slide and it would grip the turf, it allowed for that knee to bend the wrong way instead of it being free with like would have been with grass, and that caused the damage to be a whole lot worse. And that's what you're seeing nowadays. It's not saying, oh, well, if we switch to grass, these guys wouldn't tear their ACLs. No, like that's not what we're saying, is that you'd see a lot less of that, these lower body injuries, if you had more grass fields in that respect. But of course, from the business perspective of things, that's probably not going to change. I hope that at some point the NFL and other professional leagues will look at this and say, we took the same initiative of like concussions in the NFL, right? Put more resources into making sure head injuries don't become a thing anymore, right? Like, and so far that's been great. What the concussion numbers have been going down every year since we've taken initiative. I hope at some point somebody starts bringing that initiative to say, forget your pocketbooks for a split second here. These are people's futures on the line here that matter. And it's important, if you want to keep your players on the field, the majority of the time you need to take better care of your field by implementing a grass field. But the problem is nowadays, these stadiums, these professional stadiums that you're playing in, they're not just football fields anymore. Most of these football fields are used for other events. Like I know Lucas Oil Stadium hosts concerts. They host other sporting events. They host a ton of other things that requires this to be done in a certain way. And unfortunately, that's just how things are nowadays. In regards to Javonte Williams' actual injury, that really freaking sucks because he was playing really well this season despite the offense of the Broncos not performing well. And it really sucks to see a young player playing the way that he did and to have that injury happen again. And I think it's going to be a massive blow for the Broncos.
Yeah, no, I hope that he comes back, completely healthy next year, is able to take that next leap and, has a full recovery and has nothing wrong. So, thank you for everything that he's done for fans, Broncos country, everything like that. But let's just hope that, it's nothing too severe that he can't just come back from and, rehab from and be all right. Now, that is it for all of our topics, but there is one other thing I want to mention, or maybe even a couple. But the one thing we talked about it last week, and yesterday's game kind of like maybe makes it more possible to happen. So right now, the NFC East has the best divisional record out of any division in the NFL. They have the best records. And the Dallas Cowboys are in second place in that division. Do you think that it is a possibility, especially with yesterday's win, that Dak gets benched for Cooper Rush when he comes back?
I just had this conversation with my brother yesterday, and I have a few more topics we'll touch on before we finish.
Yeah, feel free.
There's a couple more, but I will say this. If I'm the Cowboys right now, I don't take Cooper Rush out. I don't care about Dak Prescott at this moment. Your team is winning with Cooper Rush. Winning amazingly? No, but they're winning. Like, that's the point. You weren't winning with Dak Prescott. You were barely winning. But Cooper Rush right now, he hasn't lost. They haven't lost since he's entered the starting role. Like, they look like they have a new energy, a new identity. Like, they're not making stupid plays anymore. They're doing enough to win games. I think they said that this is the first time in 30 years that a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys has started his career 4-0 as a quarterback. Like, I think it's the first time since like Aikman's done something like that. Like, it's just, it doesn't happen. Like, the Dallas Cowboys have not had a start like this for their quarterback in 30 freaking years, man. Yeah, Cooper Rush isn't lighting the world on fire, but your team is winning with him at quarterback. Why get rid of that momentum? Why get rid of it? And especially when like Dak has not been leading you to the promised land like you would have hoped right now. I mean, I think the only reason that Dak Prescott is going to get the job is because of the money issue that's going on right now.
Yep.
But that's the only issue. Right now, if it wasn't that, Cooper Rush should be the starting quarterback, no questions asked, because this team is winning with him at quarterback.
No, 100%. Like, dude, I've talked to several Cowboys fans, and they're pissed about it because they're like, we're paying him $40 million, but yet he's going to come back in like nothing's ever happened and have the starting role. And to be real honest, if it wasn't for Jerry Jones, I do feel like Mike McCarthy will start Cooper Rush over Dak Prescott.
I don't know, because Jerry Jones was the one that said he welcomes the QB controversy.
Does
He's
he really?
The one that came out and was like,
Cooper
"Oh, it'd be
million.
pretty cool for this team to embrace the idea of both of these quarterbacks." I'm like, you don't do that in professional sports. There's one thing in professional football you never want to have controversy over, and that's your starting quarterback. That is the one thing you don't want to do, but you need to make it clear. Is Dak Prescott going to be the quarterback of this team when he comes back, or are you going to just ride the hot hand with Cooper Rush? It needs to be addressed.
It's the same thing like with back in 2015 when Brock Osweiler and Peyton Manning were on the same team. Brock Osweiler was lighting everything up and being dominant with the Broncos. And then they rode the hot hand. They benched Peyton Manning, a Hall of Fame quarterback who has been in the league so many years, great stats, et cetera, et cetera. They benched Peyton for Brock Osweiler. And then when Brock started struggling, they put Peyton back in.
Yes.
If Gary Kubiak was not afraid to do that, Mike McCarthy should not be afraid to bench a $40 million quarterback in favor of Cooper Rush if that means keeping your team on a win streak, because that is absolutely insane that Cowboys fans think that he's just going to come back and be thrown in as the starting quarterback for that team, because like you said, he has done nothing. That game against the Buccaneers, he looked scared. He looked timid. He looked like he didn't want to throw the ball down the field. He looked like he was not the quarterback of the Cowboys from the past that we've seen. And honestly, with the way Cooper Rush is, yes, they're not winning like by blowouts, but they are winning games, and that's all that matters in this league. Are you winning games? So, bottom line is, I think that they should start Cooper Rush when Dak comes back, and Dak should have to earn his start back or his starting role back. He shouldn't be giving it to him. He should earn it.
Yeah, he needs to earn it back. And you're right. If Cooper Rush starts struggling like massively, then yeah, it's perfectly fine to switch it up with Dak and see how things go. But I mean, your team's winning right now with Cooper Rush. I mean, your team's winning very convincingly right now. It just feels like they have a different feeling with Cooper Rush at quarterback right now than what they did with Dak Prescott. It just feels that way.
Yeah, I agree. And, with how competitive the Eagles are in that division, they definitely need to, make sure that they keep that momentum so they can close in that gap with him going. So, Derek, what are the other topics that you wanted to discuss?
Well, I mean, we definitely need to talk about the Tua Tagovailoa situation over this last week. We didn't get a chance to talk about it last week because we never did a stream, but we have to talk about this because it's the biggest news in the NFL right now.
Yes.
And so for anyone that hasn't already seen it or doesn't know, Tua Tagovailoa was the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, and he went out of the previous Sunday's game because against the Buffalo Bills in week 3, because it was claimed that he had shown concussion-like symptoms. We've all seen the video of him stumbling out on the field, right? So it looked like kind of like a concussion, like he was dazed. They took him off. They took him back to check him out. They checked him for a concussion, for a back injury, all of this stuff. So apparently they checked everything and they said that they went through all the procedures and everything checked out fine the way that they said that it needed to be done. And then after the game, he still came in the second half of that game after they concluded he did not have a concussion. That was their ruling, is that the team doctors and the unaffiliated neurotrauma surgeon or consultant that's a third party to the NFL concluded that he did not have a concussion. So he was cleared to go back in. And then this last Thursday got another concussion got a concussion in this game. And we saw the clips of like his brain shut off for a minute. Like he was technically paralyzed for a little while there. And sure enough, he came out of it and they checked him at the hospital, said there's no major damage done, but he does have a concussion. They're getting other MRI stuff to be done to make sure that his neck as well, his spine is also okay. And now the NFL is launching an investigation into the Miami Dolphins on whether or not there was negligence in the initial ruling of Tua's prognosis that he did not have a concussion. Now, there's still a thing being done, Chase, but the NFLPA terminated the neurotrauma consultant who cleared him, stating that he made several mistakes in the process of it. Now, they never gave an understand. They never clearly stated what mistakes he made. They said that he did not suit his role well. I don't know what that means. It sounds like a PR move to me, but so far we have not heard from the NFL or the NFLPA or the Dolphins for that matter on what went wrong between this whole thing. So we're at this situation, Chase, right now where we're hearing either Tua lied, either the Dolphins and the neurotrauma surgeon lied about his prognosis, or somebody messed up that he did have a concussion and that they still let him play because that was the prognosis, or he truly didn't have a concussion. He just had a severe concussion this time and it turned out to be really bad. Right now, Chase, we don't know a lot of it, but there was a guy that was taking the fall for this. The neurotrauma consultant was fired from his position for making mistakes. Not going to be entirely sure on whether or not he's going to testify to something. But what's your take on all this? Because there's still a lot to take in right now. I'm very concerned about how this went down because I felt like he had a concussion. I've seen people who have had concussions, and that video looked like somebody that had a concussion, but yet nobody ever said he actually had a concussion. What's your take on all this?
So what I want to say to start with is you can blame 50% of this on Mike McDaniels. You can't blame it all on his shoulders. The reason why is I'll go back to the 2 months of the class that I was taking for scouting and GM purposes for the NFL. Is they in that class told me that the NFL coaches do not have any knowledge of any medical issues whatsoever. They are only trusted upon the medical staff and what they have told them, whether or not that they are cleared and, ready to go in the game. Now, however, after watching this and seeing it live, So Mike McDaniels, if he was told by his medical staff that Tua was medically cleared to come back,
which is what he stated. He said, "I'm not a doctor, but my guys told me that he was clear and that it was a back injury and it was not a concussion.
Exactly.
That was what he was told.
Right. So from the knowledge that I was had gathered and had been told by these NFL scouts and recruiters and things like that have been around the NFL for so many years, if the medical staff is telling the coach that he is medically cleared to play, then as a coaching decision, you are going to put your starting quarterback back in there to play because he has been cleared by the medical personnel. So he has no knowledge whatsoever on if he is. But I also blame 50% of this on him because he should have seen the way that he was stumbling and struggling.
Yes, I was just about to ask you that. Because then you brought up the argument of, the medical professionals said that he was good. So that was fine. But then you did bring up the argument of Mike McDaniel should have used better judgment in that term of saying like maybe Mike McDaniels didn't see him stumble like that, but somebody didn't relay it to him or something. But yeah, do you feel that Mike McDaniels, just out of a sheer protection of his star quarterback, should have refrained from doing that, from putting him back in?
I honestly feel like, if he saw that, he should have taken him out. But it also, if you're getting word from your medical staff that he's cleared to play, but you've got your starting quarterbacks begging to go back in, and it's just like, hey, I'm good, I want to go back in. You've got two people, a medical personnel and your starting quarterbacks, that both say that he's fine and okay to go in. So as a coach, you're thinking, okay, I'm obligated to put him back in. I'm clear. But with his better judgment and his knowledge of how things are in the NFL, he should have been like, I'm going to override you. I'm going to overrule you on your decision. I'm going to go ahead and take a step back and refrain from putting you back in just for this week. So, it does make it worse that the fact that he suffered a neurological issue with the way that his hands were like this.
Yes.
That is a neurological
it's temporary paralysis.
Yes.
And that's a spine issue as well.
Yep, it's a neurological issue with your brain. So the fact that he could have had a much more severe head injury and maybe even bleeding in the brain to where, his career could be cut short is baffling, because not only did the medical personnel screw up his diagnosis, that they could have possibly potentially ended his career. And with all the backlash that the Dolphins have received this offseason, with losing their first round pick, with the owner getting fined and suspended for the first 2 months of the season, with everything that's going on, you would have thought that the Dolphins would have taken, the initiative to take the step forward and be like, all right, this is what is going to happen. And I am absolutely shocked on how bad that they handled this whole situation.
Yeah, I just can't honestly believe that somebody would have said that they saw a guy stand back up, wobble, and then fall back down to his feet and look like he could barely walk in a straight line and tell me that that's a back injury. I just don't know how anyone could have possibly told me from that Bills game that your immediate, any kind of, I just don't see in any way, shape, or form how anybody can come to the conclusion that was a back injury.
Now, what Ryan Shazier did when he hit the defender and he kind of just flipped over and laid flat, that was a back injury. We saw that plain as day.
Yeah, because you can't get up. You can't get up if it was a back injury. You're not getting up. You're having a back injury that was that severe, you would have never been able to get back up. That did not look like a back injury to me. So the fact that, a ton of people would have assumed that, and I wonder if, I wonder what more is going to come of it. Again, we don't have all the details. We still have not been able to confirm whether or not he did sustain a concussion that game. We still don't know. Because obviously everyone else on the sideline said that he didn't, but yet the NFL is adamant, and us, you and I, and millions of other people that are watching this stuff are saying it's clear as day he had a concussion. or even if he didn't, that you shouldn't have put him back in the game to begin with, even if he didn't have a concussion, because you can still have head trauma even if you don't have a concussion.
Yeah.
Which is, and it doesn't take a doctor to know that, Mike McDaniels. You don't have to have a concussion to know you can still have head trauma. And unfortunately, that also means, Chase, that if you go into concussion protocol, and this is where the conspiracy theorists are coming out, is that Mike McDaniels and the staff knew that if they put him in concussion protocol, that he couldn't play in Thursday night's game against the Bengals. And that meant they'd have to keep him out for the rest of the half, which would have put them at a severe disadvantage, and then also would have probably lost them the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Do you know what the concussion
protocol is? That's where the
protocol is,
conspiracy theorists come in, where they're thinking they ignored the other stuff and just made it on purpose to say that he didn't actually have a concussion when in fact he did.
Yeah, no, like exactly. Do you know what the concussion protocol is? Like, do you know what they do for that kind of stuff?
I don't know the exact steps.
I do.
Know that,
I do. I'll tell you, because Emmanuel Sanders and Ryan Fitzpatrick all came out and like said the test that they give out for concussions is absolutely ridiculous. So what they do is they hold an iPad in front of you and they tell you, like, they give you simple tests. Like, for example, they give you two colors, one yellow, one red, but the color red is yellow and the color yellow is red.
Yeah, I took like a bunch of those in like high school. I never actually like had one while I had a concussion, but yeah, it's been like so long. I forget a bunch of those.
Yeah, that's what kind of test that they do to determine if you've got a concussion or not. And then if you come out and say like, oh yeah, this is red, this is yellow, blah, 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 that's it. That's all that they do. They don't do any like further head testing. They don't like, let you lay down for a little bit and then get back up, make sure that you're okay. They don't put you in a dark room and like, okay, close your eyes, sit there for 10 minutes and then get up. They don't do anything like that. They just give you an iPad, give you a few tests, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that they do for the concussion protocol. And then if you pass, you go back into the game.
Yeah, I know that they updated the parameters saying that any player will be ruled out if they exhibit any kind of gross motor instability, which is what Tua showed that last Sunday before that game. So, that was one of those situations where if the NFL had seen that, then they would have had to have taken Tua out of the game altogether.
Yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not he had a concussion or not, I just felt like somebody should have used better judgment and said, hey, Tua, like, let's take you out for a while because you didn't look good. You might have passed, but we're still very concerned and we would like to get more testing done to make sure that there isn't any head trauma, because again, it just goes to show you this is the nature of the business. This business will grind you until you almost die and then will just pick up right where you left off with a new person. And that's unfortunate because in today's NFL, you have to be looking out for yourself. And Tua did not look out for himself in that matter because he was looking more at trying to help the team rather than helping himself and saying, hey, I don't feel great. Like, I feel like I need to get more testing here, or at least like, let me cheer from the sidelines. Let me help Teddy with the game. I don't feel like I should be going back in with this head injury that I just sustained. So obviously that kind of thinking is frowned upon by a bunch of people, including building and fans as well. But at that moment, you got to watch out for your own security, man. Because now you got these chief concussion policy people that are telling Tua he should not play the rest of the year. He shouldn't. He should take the rest of the year off to make sure that there is nothing wrong with his head and neck area. Because we saw how bad that could have been Chase. Like, he could have been put in permanent paralysis for the rest of his life with what just happened there. A lot of people don't quite understand just how close he probably was. And it's at that situation where he needs to take a step away, because the problem is the more concussions you get as your career goes on, the more long-term brain damage you're going to have. And that's something that you need. And if he did somehow have 2 concussions in the span of a week, that's a really, really bad sign. And if he gets another concussion before the year's over, he could have permanent brain trauma. And he may not live to be past 60. He may not live to be past 50, for that matter. He's something needs to be done here. And I don't know what else is going to be done. I don't know who else was negligent in letting him play. But if that were me and I would have saw that video and I saw Tua doing that, I do not care if my medical professionals tell me he's clear to play. I'm saying, we're going to sit you down for the rest of this game. We're going to get you some more testing on Monday. We're going to get you checked. We're going to just make sure that there's nothing else going on here. Because at the end of the day, you're my franchise quarterback. You're one of my players. I need to watch out for you. And NFL and medical professionals make mistakes, Chase. A lot of that happens. Like, more people die because of medical malpractice in this country than a lot of people seem to think. It's actually the second leading cause of death amongst people in hospitals is because of medical malpractice, only behind heart disease. Like, that stuff happens more than I think people realize. Just because they're a medical professional does not mean they are 100% guaranteed to make the right decision for that player.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, I want to give a shout out to Alex. He's in the group chat. A buddy of mine tuning into our podcast. He's been live in the chat with us and, you know, going right along with us. But no, it is definitely terrifying seeing that kind of stuff happen. I mean, we saw it last year. It's amazing what owners and GMs and like just football teams in general will go through, the lengths that they will go through to win games. Because we saw it last year with Kirk Cousins when he got a concussion one of the games. He had lined up under center, but his center was not sitting there. Like, he lined up underneath the left guard rather than the center. And that just goes to show you, it's like, well, shit, Mike Zimmer put him back into the game. What the heck are we doing now? But this just goes to show you that the Dolphins, all they care about and all Stephen Ross cares is, I want to win football games and win a Super Bowl. I have not won a football, or I have not won a Super Bowl since I've been the owner, and I have not won one since the early years. I want to win one now. And, you know, the fact that he's done everything that he can, they've lost their first round pick because of the stupid stuff he's done.
And that's another thing, Chase. That's where the conspiracy theory came in again. Flores told people, like, the corruption that's going on inside the Miami organization, right? So again, another conspiracy theory thing of people saying they don't care. They don't care. They want to win games. They don't care about his health. They can replace him just like that if they want to. I mean, that's, again, it's not what I'm thinking. That's what everyone else has been saying on live television, even saying that, you know, there's a lot of shady things that were going on in Miami over the last few years. This might just be another one of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And you know, whatever's going on with that Miami organization, I hope the NFL gets involved. I hope that they get the full wrath of the NFLPA and Roger Goodell brought down on them. I think that they should lose their first round pick for the next two years, and you know, not and be completely fined for everything that they've done. You know, going into it, if that's all that they can do is like fire their neuro consultant, well then, if you want to punish the franchise and punish the organization and the owner for what he did, that's all you can do is fine the owner, suspend him for a few games, and lose draft picks because of what you did. And if that's what you have to do, then make it to where they don't get any first-round picks for the next 2 or 3 years because of injuring a player that severe. Because, you know, an injury that severe, he may not live past 50, like you said, and his career may be cut short quicker than we want.
Yeah, I mean, just at the end of the day, it really just comes down to, you know, where does it ultimately who showed negligence and that the NFLPA is stating that the neurotrauma consultant did. There's only two people that could have determined if Tua was clear to play. It was the neurotrauma consultant and the team's head doctor. Those two are the only two players that can determine if a player gets brought back for evaluation, they're cleared to play. So if both of those guys said that he's clear to play, then technically the Dolphins didn't do anything wrong, at least not from a management perspective of it. You can obviously fire the head doctor and the consultant, which you've already done for one of them, for negligence, obviously. Now, if they find out further down the line that Mike McDaniels is lying and that he knew that there was something going on with Tua that he shouldn't have, then yes, that goes further down the line. And then you start seeing the organization getting punished. But I mean, at the end of the day, the worst of it all is now Mike McDaniels, who is starting his career off great, now has a permanent stain on his reputation towards Tua for allowing him to come back into that game, regardless of if he was cleared or not. That's the ultimate thing he has to live with now.
Yeah.
So,
and on that note, we will end it and sit here and say that is all we have for today. We went further than what we wanted to, but this is great content, great conversation. Alex, tune in tomorrow because we're going to be talking about our picks for this next week and who we all are taking and our record on the season on how we're doing. We're also going to talk about the Detroit Lions and a couple other topics. So tune in tomorrow. I'll let you know what time it is for this podcast. Thank you, everybody else that has come in and joined. And see you next time. This is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Signing off.